I still get goosebumps every Stoneman Day. It's such an honor and inspiration to be part of the celebration tonight. Tonight, 3 more honorees will join our prestigious circle of Kate Stoneman Award recipients, bringing the total to 100. 100 extraordinary individuals honored. And I would like to ask those in the audience, and there's many of you, many of the 100 are here, and I would please ask you to stand and be applauded. You all continue to amaze and inspire us. At this time, I also want to acknowledge those who helped to make today possible, most notably my partner in crime, Jeff Sieber, who has worked tirelessly, really hoping I don't forget any names here, Megan Goff, Lauren Minot, Marcus Abad, really the entire communication team led by Tom Torello, and the entire IA team led by Jeff Shanks, and the library, and the DEI office, and there's so many people who helped make this possible. But of course, the very best are the law students. And they include the Women's Law Caucus members who sat you and handed you programs. We thank them for that. I want to give particular thanks to the superstar co-chairs from the past 2 years, Anna Brediger and Brianna Wagner. They have been integral in planning today. And while they think they're going to graduate, we've been talking to the registrar about maybe making sure that doesn't happen, because we're not sure this will go on if they graduate. So hopefully that's okay with you. We also owe thanks and gratitude to our Honorary Kate Stoneman Committee. It has been wonderful to work with this great group of staff, faculty, law students, and alums who share a common goal and vision about how to celebrate Kate Stoneman's legacy. Thank you to each and every one of you. So as I mentioned, one such idea that emanated from this honorary committee at the 25-year mark was to honor Stoneman awardees who have passed on. And this year we made a special note in the program to honor Teresa Higgins Snyder, who passed very recently. Teresa was born in 1939, and she was the only woman in her law school class of 1964. We recognized her as a trailblazer with the Stoneman Award in 2013. Also continuing from the Stoneman Award Committee, or the Stoneman Committee, we have the Student Award Series. When we were planning the 25th anniversary, Betsy Katz, the beloved daughter of the beloved Kathy Katz, was talking with Amy Kellogg, who I know is around, but she's teaching, class of 2002. And then later, our very own Professor Laurie Shanks generously offered to fund a Catherine D. Katz Kate Stoneman Student Prize. They challenged our current law students to describe how Kate Stoneman has inspired them and what would she be fighting for had she been alive today. The students were encouraged to use any medium to describe their inspiration. We have had so many beautiful submissions over the years. We ought to start a museum. This year's award committee had the pleasure of reading through 12 separate submissions. They are displayed here to the right. They are gorgeous. Please take some time to look at the work that the law students have compiled. We were able to read inspiring poems, peruse groundbreaking legal research papers, and enjoy all kinds of creative ways to honor Kate Stoneman. So if you are in the audience and you are one of our 12 student submitters, please stand. Thank you. All of your beautiful and creative submissions are up here at the table, and I really do hope you'll take some time to peruse. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Now, of course, the committee had to make some tough choices, and I heard it was a really tough choice. They couldn't choose one, they couldn't choose two, so they chose 3. I have your certificates here somewhere, but I'll give them to you after the ceremony. To tie in 3rd place, we had a beautiful poem by Joanne Lee, who I believe is on Zoom, and a creative booklet from Najat Mia. If you're here, please stand. These 2 entries were so impressive. I wish I could read both entries. I'll read just a few lines of Joanne's poem. She stood resilient and valiant, never to blanch at the shards of glass that lay at her feet, ceiling torn asunder, the freedom of all to come seen in the stars. Her footsteps mark the halls. Whenever I feel doubt sink through the shadows, Kate's fire and passion blaze the trail clear. That's just a piece of it. This poetry was top notch, all of it. In second place, we have this beautiful, gorgeous stitch quilt by Kumiko Dabney. Please stand to be applauded. For first place, we had an incredible book compiled by Cassandra Pointer and Brianna Wagner entitled The Verdict, Uncovering the Buried History of Women at Albany Law School. Here is an excerpt from the foreword, and this is written starting with Cassandra. As I looked around the school, I noticed plaques and photos honoring men who were firsts in different areas. However, there was very little representation of women, let alone diverse women. I realized it was no easy task to find out who was the first Black woman to graduate from Albany Law. Brianna had the phenomenal idea to do this project in honor of Kate Stoneman and her legacy. We embarked on this journey to discover the first woman graduate in multiple groups: Black, Latina, Asian, Muslim. We wanted to highlight and honor these women and make this information more readily available. This book tells the story of how the presence of women has evolved over time at Albany Law School. Our book is modeled after Albany Law's first yearbook from 1921, telling the story of gender's place, or lack thereof, in Albany Law School following Kate Stoneman's graduation. We intend this book to serve as a lasting reminder of the triumphant, resilient story of women at Albany Law School. And as a side note, it's no surprise that when they needed help, they went back to Lisa Suda in the library. So you too, please stand. And Brianna and Cassandra, please stand as well. Tremendous work. We wish we could have given awards to all of you. We were so impressed with your work. So thank you, students. Thank you for your creativity. Like these star law students, the awardees tonight are impressive and inspirational. They have bravely paved paths for so many of us as we rest upon their shoulders and walk in their footsteps. So many parallels exist between the awardees today and our very own Kate Stoneman in their pioneering and trailblazing spirit. Reading their nomination packets were overwhelmingly inspired in so many ways. Our first award winner is an extraordinary woman, someone near and dear to me and to so many of us at Albany Law School, our very own amazing Professor Laurie Shanks. You're not allowed to cry. One of the founders of the Kate Stoneman Day Honorary Committee. But first, she is introduced by another amazing Kate Stoneman awardee, the wonderful presiding justice of the Third Department, Judge Elizabeth Gary. Justice Gary is a tireless supporter of equality in Kate Stoneman Day and is an inspiration to so many of us and our law students. Thank you, Justice Gary.
Thank you, Professor. It is such a tremendous joy, honor, privilege to be here before you this evening. And I want to start by stating that it's triply exciting, of course, not only my wonderful nominee, Professor Shanks, but Judge Rosado, there you are, to be here with you tonight. And Verna Williams, I really look forward to hearing your remarks. So such a pleasure. We know that Kate Stoneman was a courageous trailblazer, undeterred by obstacles she faced when she entered the male-dominated legal profession. She cleared a path that has been followed by countless women in generations that followed. I can think of few women who have lived out that fierce, fearless spirit as boldly as Laurie Shanks. In supporting her nomination, I described her as a trailblazing luminary in the field of criminal defense. She entered that field over 45 years ago, shockingly to say, yes. And it was a time when women were not only vastly underrepresented in the legal profession, but particularly so, I believe, in that field of practice. Few chose the challenging path that she pursued. Far fewer pursued that type of career with the passion and distinction that she has demonstrated. And exceedingly few have also gone on to also teach and inspire at the highest levels of scholarship. Professor Shanks has shared her knowledge and wisdom generously and tirelessly. She has shaped the future of our profession through her work here, of course, at Albany Law School, but she has also instructed practitioners, students, attorneys, and judges nationally and across the globe. Wait for this. This is so cool. She has taught and lectured in 23 states, as well as Chile, Guam, Micronesia, France, China, and England. So, I mean, I think that's pretty cool, but she has done all of this in addition to her extraordinary career in private practice, where she has handled exceptionally challenging, high-profile cases and established a reputation for exceptional representation. She has contributed her expertise to commissions, advisory committees, working groups, bar association initiatives, and by volunteering for a wide variety of law school events and law days. And you just keep on. I mean, her resume was really that long. Okay. So through her mentorship of women attorneys, many of whom have gone on to work in public service as judges or practitioners, emulating her standards of excellence. Her impact has cascaded and multiplied to the great benefit of not only her mentees, but those they serve and their communities. For all these reasons, I was thrilled to join Professor Connie Mayer in her nomination of Professor Shanks for this honor. As Professor Mayer noted in her letter, like Kate Stoneman, Laurie has paved the way for hundreds of women in the legal profession. Her entire 45+ year career as an attorney has been devoted to actively seeking change and expanding opportunities for women within the profession. She has mentored hundreds of young women and opened countless doors, helping them pursue legal careers. Her tremendous commitment and dedication to her students, to her clients, and to the practice of law mirrors the commitment and dedication to education and equality advocated by Kate Stoneman. For all these reasons, and for so many more that I'm not going to go on about, it is most fitting that Professor Laurie Shanks is receiving this prestigious honor this evening. You would come forward if you would come up. Professor Laurie Shanks, for your record of extraordinary achievements and commitment to the ideals of Kate Stoneman, we are honored to present you with the 2024 Kate Stoneman Award.
Thank you, Judge Gary, for those very generous remarks. Thanks to my dear friend Connie and the judge and the Stoneman Committee. As Melissa said, I have been on the Stoneman Committee for 30 years. At the last committee, I did say that I'd been on it longer than the students had been alive. I was very young when I started. But I can tell you that I was both humbled and absolutely thrilled to join the ranks of people who I have admired over the decades. The honorees have just been people who were my mentors, people who I have idolized, people who I've read about, and I could not be more thrilled to be a part of that group. some things have changed since I became a lawyer. I was remembering when I was thinking about what to say, not long after I came to Albany, I was asked to represent a young woman, a domestic violence victim who was facing life in prison. And there was in court and a not very important pretrial, sort of a routine pretrial hearing. And I noticed that the courtroom was just full of other lawyers. So I thought, oh, well, something important must be going on after my, my motion, which was going to be denied because I was representing the defendant. So I asked one of the other lawyers who was there, I said, oh, do you have something interesting on the docket? And he said, no, you're the only one here. You're the only case. And I said, well, what are all these people doing here? And he said, oh, they've never seen a girl try a murder case. Okay, so things have changed. Now it is not at all unusual. There are women attorneys who are plaintiffs' lawyers, defense lawyers in every type of civil or criminal case. There are women judges, many of whom are here tonight, which is thrilling to me. Every trial court bench, every appellate bench in the state, on the highest court of appeals, on the federal bench. And it has been very exciting to see that. There are judges of color, there are young women, there are older women. But I am sorry, I know all of this will come as a shock to you, but while there's been progress made, the fight for equality, inclusion, and justice continues. In some ways, I feel that we've even moved backwards and that the fight continues. There are millions of people in our country and around the world who are desperate, who are suffering and are desperate for assistance. At times, the misery and the scope of the problems seems just insurmountable. It's difficult sometimes not to become overwhelmed, not to get depressed, not to get just feeling like it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much I do, it's not enough, and so maybe I don't need to do anything. We're not the first generation to confront the feeling that things are so bad. And so when I get discouraged, when I feel like I can't fight anymore, I remember lessons that I learned long ago in religious school and in a group of lessons that were entitled Ethics of the Fathers. And the one that I was thinking about the most was one that said, you are not required to complete the work of repairing the world, but neither may you refrain from doing your part. Kate Stoneman did her part. The Stoneman awardees, who have been my inspiration and my mentors over the years, did their part. Our honorees tonight, Verna and Yvette, are doing their part. I tried my best to do my part. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I really think these were the ethics of the mothers. We don't always know when we are successful. We're not always rewarded. We don't always know when we've made a difference. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes we're rewarded. We win a triumph. We win a motion. An immigrant becomes a citizen. A grandmother is not evicted from her home because her grandson sold marijuana out of it. A family is reunited. A child gets to grow up in a loving home. Someone who has an addiction gets treatment as opposed to being thrown away in a prison cell. A progressive is elected. A law is passed. My reward, I had those things happen to me, sometimes not as often as I would like when I was in practice, But as a faculty member, I often was rewarded. I cannot tell you, dozens of my students have called me to say, Professor Shanks, I was in court and you're in my head all the time. I can hear you. I can hear you. Stand up straight, plant your feet, put your shoulders back, be confident. You got this. You have your trial notebook. It's done. You know the law. You know the facts. You're gonna win. And if you don't win, you're gonna learn from being lost and you'll win the next time. And again, those are ethics from this mother. I have had the joy of having not only my own children, many of whom are here tonight, but also generations of law students. And now we pass the baton to each of you. We ask each of you who is here in the room, who is here on Zoom, to follow your passion. Choose the work that has the most meaning to you. Voting rights, reproductive rights, prison reform, tenants' rights, fighting the wealth inequality that is destroying this nation, children's rights, legislation, immigration reform. Every single person in this audience and on Zoom can make a difference. Kate Stoneman didn't fight just for women. The Stoneman awardees did not fight just for women. And none of us who are here, who were awarded in the past or awarded tonight, did it alone. Without my husband, without my children, without my colleagues at the law school, without my friends and the support of each and every one of them, I would not be standing here. I would not get this award, and I would not have been able to make the difference in the world that I have tried to make. We have to rise up together, and we have to work together to fight for people of every race, religion, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, language, and place of birth. When you get discouraged, when you feel overwhelmed, when you're blocked, when you lose a fight, when you lose a trial, find a way, find a colleague, find support, keep pushing, keep fighting. I challenge all of you to do your part to repair the world. Thank you.
Wow, do I have to speak after that beautiful inspiration? Thank you, Professor Shanks, for your inspiring words. We are thrilled to celebrate you. We are now going to turn to our next award winner, who is also being introduced by some pretty incredible women. So make sure you listen. We have our LALSA president, Bella Napadano, who will join our Kate Stoneman Chair in Law and Democracy, Professor Mary Lynch, who will be introducing Justice Rosado. But it is significant that we have a law student and Professor Lynch jointly introducing her, because Justice Rosado was actually a law student of Professor Lynch some 40 years ago. So it's only fitting that we hear from them both today. Please join the podium.
So before you begin, I wrote 40 years because I can't count, but it's actually about 30 almost. So sorry, that was on me. That was on me.
Buenas tardes a todos. Hoy tengo el gran honor de presentar a la Honorable Justicia Llinét Rosado, alumna de la clase de 1997. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I have the distinct honor of introducing the Honorable Llinét Rosado, alumna of the class of 1997. In appointing Justice Rosado as co-chair of the New York State Judicial Committee on Women in the Courts, Chief Judge Rowan Wilson described her as a dedicated public servant who, as a member of the Judicial Committee on Women in the Courts and the 12th Judicial District's Gender Fairness Committee, has worked tirelessly to raise awareness of the various issues surrounding gender equity in the courts, legal profession, and society. Chief Administrative Judge Zayas added that as a lifelong fighter for women's rights and equal justice, Justice Llinét Rosado is a natural fit. First Department Associate Associate Justice Sally Manzanet Daniels praised Justice Rosado's work in leadership positions such as Vice President of the National Association of Women Judges, New York chapter, and as a board member of the Latino Judges Association, noting that our united fight to diversify the court of the state of New York has placed the issue squarely on the map and in the center of public debate. Suffice it to say, having Justice Rosado in your corner is like calling upon a one-woman army. I, for one, would not go to battle without her. Justice Rosado has earned every single accolade bestowed upon her. She has worked in the Legal Aid Society's Criminal Defense Division at the Children's Law Center and as a court attorney to several judges. After being elected to the bench, Justice Rosado has served in or presided over some of New York State's most varied and challenging courts, parts, and proceedings, such as family court, a mental health part, housing court, and an integrated domestic violence part. She also served as a Children's Victim Act justice in Bronx County. In July of 2023, Justice Rosado was elevated to her current position of Associate Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department. Justice Rosado teaches, speaks to community organizations, mentors, and advises countless young people. One longtime mentee wrote, "Judge Rosado was always rooting for me." And I cannot begin to explain the admiration I felt for Judge Rosado every time I saw her on the bench. I remember thinking that I wanted to be just like her. Judge Rosado has quite possibly memorized the entire CPLR and DRL. Accordingly, she has been acknowledged for her unwavering support to the courts and the legal community by numerous other institutions and organizations, including the Bronx Family Court Bar Association, Bronx Women's Bar Association, Dominican Bar Association, and the Puerto Rican Bar Association, amongst many more.
So as you heard, I was first exposed to the infectious energy that is Justice Rosado almost 30 years ago now, when she and I worked together representing incarcerated survivors of intimate partner violence who fought back and killed their abusers. Her mother and I call her Llinét. I learned it from her mother. Llinét or Llinét committed countless hours of investigative work, strategic legal thinking, and survivor-centered lawyering on behalf of our clients in our clinical program. As a student, she demonstrated exuberance for lawyering, extraordinary listening skills, keen intelligence, and an intentionally collaborative approach. And once Llinét was safely ensconced in the clinic space or driving in a car to prison to visit our clients, she was also warmly hilarious and so much fun. She was kind and empathetic to her peers, to her clients, and to me, a harried tenure-track professor with first one and then another little one. She was then and is now resilient, diligent, and somewhat unaware of how truly skilled and talented and amazing she is. A lawyer who's humble. As a student, Llinét employed her Spanish fluency, her entire immigrant Dominican family, her beloved Armando, who from SUNY Albany used to come over. He said to me, "What's this 2000 building?" When I was here, we were stuck over in the bottom of the DOT building. And so she got him involved, then boyfriend, now husband of many years. And I think the whole Lower East Side as well in supporting our clients. In the mid-90s, Albany law was not very diverse. It was not very inclusive. It was not very feminist, and it was not gender inclusive. Working with allies and peers, Llinét participated with other students in identifying the discriminatory parts of our culture and identifying the work that needed to be done to begin to change that culture. through the diversity committee, little hearings that we had and fishbowl experiences. She voiced truth about problems, but in a way that earned her respect and furthered understanding and led to change. Today, Justice Rosado continues the path she began as a student, linking arms with all who strive to overcome injustices and inequities. And in fact, one of her mentors is here with us on Zoom and has delivered these gorgeous flowers in the middle. And that is Betty Ellering. For those young folks among us, Betty was the first female deputy chief administrative judge for the courts of the city of New York. She said back in 1982, ERA may be foundering elsewhere in the country, but equal rights for minorities and women is alive and kicking in New York. She was a first everything. She is co-chair with my former student, my friend, Llinét Beltré Rosado. And so we are so proud of you, Justice Rosado. I want to just do one more thing. Are there folks here who, even though they don't go to Albany Law School, are here because they're mentees of Justice Rosado? Would you stand? They traveled to be here. Who she has mentored is littered throughout the state. When you call her, it's basically, okay, I can do that, but I have to go speak to this person on the other line who needs help because whatever. So, Justice Rosado, you are so very deserving of this 2022-2024 Kate Stoneman Award. I told you, not good at math. 2024 Kate Stoneman Award, and we ask you to come up to accept it.
I'm gonna stay here because this is too short. Okay, yeah. So bear with me because I'm still on beepers. And I have this, so. So first of all, doesn't this room look amazing? Oh my God, everybody looks so great, and getting this award is such an honor. It's like the Oscars for me. Okay, so I wore my best outfit, as you can see. I want to thank everyone that came up here, that drove up here for me. I appreciate you and I adore you. I also want to thank, I'm not used to this. I also want to thank everyone that's watching. All my sisters in the law are watching. It's amazing. And the two best accomplishments in my life are watching, which are my sons, Elias and Nicholas. I love you. I, of course, have to shout out my husband of 27 years, who's here with me today, Armando. I cannot tell you how many people came up to me to say, oh my God, he's matching your outfit. They always get the credit, right? I love you, babes. By the way, I was married by the clinic. The clinic helped me create my wedding on 78 Spring Street. So this is very much my family. I want to thank the committee and the chair and anyone that had anything to do with today's event, with a special shout out to Jeff Sieber. I have never, ever in my life met someone that can calm you through an email. Through an email. I'm freaking out. I'm like, Jeff, I don't have the hotel stuff. Sends the email. I didn't even have to register. He did it for me. Jeff, I want to congratulate my fellow honorees. I'm so honored to share this stage with both of you. Our house, Verna Williams, CEO of Equal Justice Works. She is the epitome of this year's Women's History Month theme, with her demonstrated history of advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's my honor to know you. And Dynamo Professor Laurie Shanks, my professor. Receiving this with you was just a cherry on the sundae. I recall as a member of the clinic, it didn't matter what clinic you were in, because once you got into the clinic, all the clinics was your family. And Laurie says to me one day, come on, kiddo, let's go for a ride. So we get in the car and we're going to a welder's. Why, Professor Shanks? Well, I have a case that involves welding. And I need to understand it from beginning to end. How else can I effectively represent my client if I don't see the welding myself? You have to see it to know it. Professor Shanks, please know that that stayed with me as a litigator, as a law clerk, as a judge. I'm looking things up to try to understand it so I can see it and provide better justice. You are amazing. I need to acknowledge the three women who put forth my name for this great honor. The three women represent three different parts of my life. Professor Mary Lynch. Without you, I would have dropped out of law school. Straight up, that's the straight truth. That clinic showed me what I was capable of doing, and you had me at hello. I love you. I love Rudy. I love Patrick. I love them all, okay? The second person who put forth my name is Sally Mansonet Daniels, who I was a court attorney for and who now is my colleague on the Appellate Division First Department. The first Latina to be appointed to that Appellate Division. She's not here because she's in Mexico with her grandbabies, and she's actually telling me that she's gonna log on. I love you, Sally. The third woman that nominated me, I met as a judge, Alexa Sears. She was an intern in college thinking about law school, shy and quiet. And now she's a kick-ass attorney, taking no prisoners. And yes, I curse because she deserves that. She drove up here for me today. You inspire me for the future. Now, I don't need to tell you about Kate Stoneman because we all know her and love her. I get excited about every Kate Stoneman day, whether I'm here or not. What I want to discuss about her is a trait that she possessed that so many women in my life have possessed. My mother, my four sisters, all the women who have mentored me, guided me, and loved me, and that's grit. Grit, G-R-I-T, the courage and the resolve, the strength of character. You've heard her story. She tried to get admitted. They said, no, we're not admitting you because you are not a boy. You are a girl, so no. So what did she do? She said, I'm not having that. I'm gonna call my girls, the same girls that helped me with the voting, and we're gonna fix this. And in one day, they got the support to change it. And 3 days later, she was admitted. Grit. But it doesn't end there. You see, because when they asked her, why? What is the reason for all this concentrated effort into getting admitted? Her response was that it was not just for her, that it was for the precedents it established and the new sphere of life which she opened to women. You see, in addition to her grit, like so many women in my life, she believed in lifting as she climbed. She was thinking of us, women that weren't even born yet, that weren't even alive. She was saying, I got to not just open this door, I want to blow this door open so that it never closes again. I have dedicated my professional life following the footsteps of Professor Mary Lynch, Professor Laurie Shanks, to help those that need the most, concentrating on children and women and the poor. I've been able to give back, mentoring. So many of my mentors here, Maylene, Miguelina, Savina, and new mentors I met today, Anna, Cassandra. I am so inspired. I go into the schools when everybody else is going home to get a glass of wine. I am going to the community board. Why? Because my babies are 21 and 27, and I have to keep pushing forward. If I can change just one person's life, I want to do it. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm constantly told, how do you do all that? You're everywhere. You're doing everything. I don't take that as a compliment. But my response is, I'm a woman. That's what we do. I was recently named co-chair of the Judicial Committee of Women in the Courts. I have been so blessed to have so many Kate Stonemans in my life. Mary Lynch, Professor Shanks, Judge Gary, I can keep going on and on. To be appointed co-chair with the Honorable Betty Weinberg Ellerin is such an honor to me. I was blown away by that phone call. And I know she's watching me, and I just love this woman. She is 96 years old and she puts us to shame. She goes into the office and she continues to create woman judges. I love you, woman, and I stand on your shoulders as so many of us do. So when Governor Hochul appointed me, I received a letter from another Bronx girl, another Kate Stoneman honoree, the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor. She took time out of her life to write me a letter. I mean, first of all, I didn't wash my hand for a week and I opened it because I was like, she touched this envelope, right? But to read it, hi, Lisa Fisher. I love you, my sister. I just want to take a moment out to shout out all the judges that took the time out to be here. Sora, I love you. But when I opened that letter, I just stood there for a moment. And this is my thoughts. I'm receiving a letter from the first Latina on the NYS Supreme Court that she wrote to the first woman of Dominican descent at the Appellate Division, appointed by the first woman judge. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. Except to say woman power, right? And so I'm saving that letter. I don't know if my great-great-grandkids are going to sell it on eBay. I don't know how this works. But that letter I've gotten framed just to inspire me, to let me know how far I've come as an immigrant kid that grew up in the projects, raised by a single divorced mother and 3 sisters. Education is the biggest weapon in any girl's toolbox. So let's continue the fight. Let's continue to try to make the world a better place for those girls that haven't even been born yet. And in the words of Mother Teresa, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Judge, for those inspiring words. And I want us all to join in another round of applause for our first 2 Kate Stoneman Award recipients. At this time, I am delighted to introduce to you our wonderful president and dean. She is only the 3rd female dean and president in Albany Law School history. This is her very first Kate Stoneman Day. She has helped inspire the law school in so many ways. Please give thanks and a warm welcome to Dean Cinnamon Carlarn.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, everyone. It is such an honor to be the 19th president and dean of Albany Law School and to be the 3rd woman dean in a row. I mean, that is a moment of pride. So it's really wonderful to see you all here today for Albany Law School's 30th annual Go Big or Go Home and my very first Kate Stoneman Day. A day that I have been looking forward to and a day that I know is part of the fabric of Albany Law School and that really reflects and embeds our long-standing, deep commitment to advancing equity in society and in the rule of law. And that is why I am so proud to be here. I'm so proud to be part of this law school. So as many of you and everybody by now knows, Stoneman Day is when we gather to honor the legacy of Kate Stoneman, who was Albany Law School's first woman graduate and the first woman to be admitted to the bar in New York State. She was a true trailblazer. And I want to just pause now and come back to the students, all of the students who contributed these amazing, amazing honors for Kate Stoneman and who have done so much work and who are really why I am so inspired to be here and to be part of this community. And so I just want to take a moment to say, I can't wait until you are the next Stoneman honorees. So returning to Kate Stoneman. So in her honor and being committed to continuing the work that she started, this day provides us with an important opportunity to recognize the invaluable contributions of women to all aspects of the legal profession. And it is now more than ever, as we all know, the time to celebrate the voices, the power, the successes, and the leadership of women in our society, and in particular, the influence of these many women leaders who have helped move us towards a more inclusive and equitable understanding and practice of the rule of law. And to that end, we are honoring 3 really remarkable women today. So let me first start off by congratulating our first 2 award winners, 2 women who, have you heard, truly honor the legacy of Kate Stoneman by not only being outstanding professionals, leaders, and trailblazers in the field, but also giving back to their communities and being mentors for others. They are both true leaders in every way. So first, Justice Rosado, thank you for all that you've done and continue to do in your remarkable career as a public defender and now as a judge and leader. Your commitment to protecting the rights of women and children and to promoting gender equity in the court system has and continues to impact countless lives and help ensure that we have the hope of seeing true gender equity in our court system. You really do model courage and leadership and affect real change. You're a model for our students and so generous with them as well, and for all of us. So congratulations, and it's such an honor to share this night with you. And congratulations to Professor Laurie Shanks, who I really just am so honored to get to know and spend time with. While I may have only been at Albany for a short time, it's long enough to know and to know what a legend you are and how important you are to this community. It's true, you really are. As a professor, Professor Shanks taught and mentored generations of future lawyers, as you heard, who've gone on to be outstanding lawyers, leaders, and public servants. Professor Shanks helped us at Albany Law School build the innovative and progressive curriculum that focuses on practical and experiential education that is really the hallmark of who we are and what I love about this place. So simply put, we would not be the institution we are without you, and hundreds of practicing lawyers, judges, and other leaders in the legal field also owe their success to you. So thank you for continuing to share your wisdom and your spirit and your presence with us. We are so lucky, and congratulations on this much-deserved award. We have one more extraordinary woman to honor today, and it is my absolute privilege and pleasure to have the chance to introduce her to you. She's someone who I've admired, learned from, and seen as a beacon of leadership for many years, Verna Williams. Verna Williams is the CEO of Equal Justice Works, an organization that many of you know and that we have all benefited from. Equal Justice Work, of course, advances the really important work of connecting people in the legal community, lawyers, law students, and faculty with the opportunities and different kinds of resources they need to support and really promote public service and equal justice. Resources that we all know, again, now more than ever, are still too thin and too infrequently directed to those who need them. And these are the things that Equal Justice Work seeks to change. They have 300 fellows every year. Now, Verna has a very extensive background in teaching and practicing law, and she's not only a leader, but is a true scholar in the fields of civil rights and women's rights. She's served as the Dean of the University of Cincinnati College of Law, another fine law school in Ohio. Prior to becoming dean, she was a professor for many years and taught courses on family law, gender discrimination, and constitutional law. She founded and co-directed the Judge Nathaniel Jones Center for Race, Gender, and Social Justice at the University of Cincinnati as well. Her work in the field really has influenced a generation of scholars, and I count myself among them. Before joining academia, Verna was the Vice President and Director of Educational Opportunities at the National Women's Law Center, where she focused on gender equity and education. In that role, she was the lead counsel and successfully argued the really critical landmark case of Davis versus Monroe County Board of Education before the United States Supreme Court. That case established that educational institutions have a duty to respond to and address complaints of student-to-student sexual harassment, a truly groundbreaking case and one that pushed the rule of law towards a much deeper understanding of what is required to have a more equitable system of law. Prior to that work, Verna clerked for the Honorable David S. Nelson at the U.S. District Judge for the District of Massachusetts, after which she practiced at Sidley Austin and also the U.S. Department of Justice. She has truly worked in and had influence across every aspect of our legal system and our thinking about the rule of law. It is my great honor to invite our keynote speaker, Verna Williams, to join me at the podium so I may present her with the Miriam M. Kate Stoneman Award. So Verna, for your record of extraordinary achievements and your commitment to the ideals of Kate Stoneman, we are very honored to present you with the 2024 Miriam M. Kate Stoneman Award.
Wow, what a day. I mean, what a day. Have you ever gone somewhere, let's say you're invited to a gathering and you don't know what it's going to be like, and it's like, okay, it sounds like a good idea. And then you get there and you feel like, this is like, these are my people. This is my people. Wow. Dean Carlin, thank you so much for that generous introduction. To the students, wow, congratulations. This is remarkable work. And I agree, one of these days, we're going to see you right up here at the podium. I know that. To my sister honorees, wow. I mean, you guys are like, oh, your career. Listen, I am not worthy. Thank you for all that you have done in this community and with these students and this legal profession. It matters so much. Thank you so very much. I'm really honored to be here. I really am. And I got the invitation. I was pretty excited about it, but I had no idea. Then I start looking at the other honorees and the luminaries who come before me. And if you were here earlier, you saw the slide presentation. I mean, I'm the Honorable Judith S.K., first woman to serve on New York's highest court. Barbara Underwood, first woman to serve as Attorney General in New York, first woman to act as Solicitor General for the United States. The Honorable Tanika Frost, Schenectady's first Black City Court judge. And of course, the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor. Okay, right, and me. Wow, wow. Oh, what an awe-inspiring list, right? An awe-inspiring list illustrating vividly the potential and the power of being a first. Being a first is a journey marked by opportunity and challenge, something I'm familiar with, having been the first African-American dean of the University of Cincinnati Law School, and now the first Black person to lead Equal Justice Works. That is where I work. The late Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court, captured the opportunity and challenge perfectly, observing, quote, "It's wonderful to be the first to do something, but I didn't want to be the last. And if I did not do the job well, there might be no second woman on the court." Justice O'Connor captured the dilemma of being first, the thrill of being a pioneer, residing with the terror of knowing that progress could stop with you. Depending upon where and how you are first, you cease being an individual and become a transcendent figure. You represent the category that made you first, that makes you the measuring stick for those who follow. Put differently, being first obligates one to ensure that they're not the last. Being first is just the beginning. It's also about leading, ensuring that there's a way forward, even after we're gone. My talk examines these dual meanings of first, starting, of course, with Kate Stoneman, the beginning of gender diversity in the New York bar and beyond. Now, many of you know this story, but some of you don't, so just bear with me. The daughter of two educators, Kate, as you well know, left the family farm to become a teacher, one of the few occupations for women at the time. Preparation for that profession took typically 2 years, just 2 years. At that time, so-called scientists claimed that excessive education was harmful to women's reproductive function because it diverted blood from the womb to the brain. True story. So higher education was anathema to humankind. After graduation in 1866, Kate taught for 40 years. Now that could have been the end of her story. I mean, a dedicated educator, 40 years is no joke. But about 3 years into her professional life, Congress and the states were debating the 15th Amendment, and the women's suffrage movement took off, sweeping Kate into the fight. With other like-minded souls, Kate organized the Albany Women's Suffrage Society. Their immediate goal was securing passage of a state law that would allow women to participate in school board elections. And upon their success, Kate Stoneman was the first person at the polls and the first woman to vote in Albany. That success propelled Kate and her compatriots forward. As the Suffrage Society's secretary, she recorded how they targeted legislators and built relationships so strong, and these are her words, that they had the run of the houses and were allowed to come and go as they please. I mean, can't you hear the exhilaration in her voice? Small wonder that Kate decided to study law, apprenticing with a family friend. In 1886, she took and passed the bar, as you know, but the state Supreme Court denied her admission because, as Justice Rosado said, "You're a girl." The state's Code of Civil Procedure only allowed male citizens to practice law. So like any attorney worth her salt, Kate had an in the alternative plan. She and her allies embarked on a campaign to change the code in the state legislature by resuscitating a bill that had been languishing in the Judiciary Committee. Fueled by the state's court's denial of admission, Kate and her crew put the full court press on those lawmakers, freeing it from the committee, and in just 6 days, getting it passed in both houses with little dissent. Just 9 days after being denied admission to the bar, the governor signed that bill into law, allowing Kate to reapply, this time successfully. So she immediately started practicing law, even as she continued to teach and advocate for women's suffrage. When women finally secured the right to vote, Kate served as a poll watcher in Albany's elections in 1918 when she was 77 years old. Yes. What a badass. Right? Total badass. Kate Stoneman started out doing what was expected for her gender by being a teacher, but she came of age at a historic moment, one in which she could see horizons expanding for women like her. And she stepped up to be the first, making a way out of no way, and in so doing, helped push our nation closer to being a full democracy. Kate's many firsts, her legislative aplomb, ability to open the franchise up to half the US population, they all tell us that she was a leader, dedicated to making a difference for the people who would follow. Her relentless advocacy for women's access to the legal profession are a testament to her unwavering dedication to the cause of justice. Kate Stoneman's career gives new meaning to being a first, evincing the leadership, tenacity, and vision required to be a pioneer, as well as a commitment to continuous improvement. Being a first like Kate means occupying multiple dimensions of time simultaneously, informed by, but unencumbered by the past, attentive to the present, while strategizing about the future. So let's break that down. Kate was informed, but unencumbered by the past. Society dictated the role she was to play, as she explained in a 1919 interview. Quote, there were only 7 occupations open to women, all more or less connected with the pursuits of women: housekeeping, sewing, cooking, tailoring, domestic nursing, teaching in dame schools, and shop work. That knowledge informed her present as she prepared for and became an educator, teaching full-time even as she worked for the right to vote and study law, leveraging her advocacy experience to open the practice of law in New York to women. And all the while, she had her eye on a better future for women, marveling, in her words, that we have metamorphosed into a series of communities in which equality between sexes is an undisputed matter of fact. Kate Stoneman's example tells us that being first means not being bogged down with fear that the slightest misstep leads directly to being the last. It's inspirational, aspirational. It's not just first in time, it's first in class. Considering Kate Stoneman's work for voting rights in this framework invites us to assess the state of our democracy today, to determine whether it has progressed to match Kate's ambitions. A fitting question as the 2024 election season is upon us. Put differently, is our democracy first in class? So let's turn to the three questions. You know, we're lawyers, we like three-part tests. The first question, are voting laws and policies informed and unencumbered by the past? While our history is rife with exclusion at the ballot box for unpropertied men, Black and Indigenous people, women, immigrants, among others. Our struggle for free and fair elections took 2 constitutional amendments and federal legislation. Informed by our past, Congress enacted the Voting Rights Act about 100 years after ratification of the 15th Amendment. The Voting Rights Act was a powerful tool for democracy because it authorized the federal government to monitor voting practices in jurisdictions with a history of discrimination. In other words, unlike the typical civil rights law that allows litigation after a violation has occurred, the Voting Rights Act enabled the Department of Justice to stop discrimination before it could exact harm on communities. More specifically, the Voting Rights Act required covered jurisdictions to seek approval for any proposed change in voting, any change. Modifications you might expect, like redistricting, as well as some you might not expect, like moving a polling place from here to there. Deep in the Act's DNA was the recognition that even small alterations to voting maps or polling place locations could make the right to vote illusory. Because of the Voting Rights Act, covered jurisdictions could not implement discriminatory practices, which helped communities of color elect representatives who reflected the people they served. I had the privilege of enforcing the Voting Rights Act back in the 90s as an attorney for the Voting Rights Section at the Department of Justice, and I saw firsthand the power of that law. When I investigated proposed voting changes, I spoke to pastors, lawmakers, moms, people from all walks of life to understand their communities and the impact of proposed actions on them. Knowing that my work would enable them to elect the representatives of their choice allowed me to give back using laws from the era that made my being a lawyer possible. So far, so good, right? The past informed policy to create a more capacious democracy until 2013. And that is when the Supreme Court invalidated part of the Voting Rights Act, in part because of its success. It was the Obama so-called post-racial era. And there wasn't enough evidence that such a tool remained necessary, according to the majority. In dissent, the late Justice Ginsburg said that invalidating part of the act, quote, when it has worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes, is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you're not getting wet. The Voting Rights Act remains on the books, but its force has been mightily diminished, which leads then to the next question. Are voting laws and policies attentive then to the present? Our present is deeply post-Shelby County era. And with the 2024 election underway, there are concerted efforts to suppress voting rights across the nation, particularly within marginalized and under-resourced communities. Just last year, 14 states passed laws restricting or limiting voting access. In North Carolina, recent legislation eliminated mail drop boxes, shortened the period to return mail-in ballots, and restricted same-day voter registration. Florida has passed laws making it more difficult for volunteer groups to register voters and organize Get Out the Vote initiatives. More recently, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that only the U.S. Attorney General may file suits for alleged violations of the Voting Rights Act. That means taking that tool out of the hands of organizations like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the ACLU. Only the Department of Justice. Now, if this decision is allowed to stand, or worse, if other federal courts follow this disastrous path, individual voters would have to depend solely upon the Department of Justice to challenge restrictive voter ID laws, reduced early voting opportunities, or regulations designed to make voting as difficult as possible. In too many jurisdictions, voting laws and policies are about restricting the franchise, hearkening back to the old anti-democratic ways we thought were behind us. So that brings me to the third and final question. Will these laws and policies ensure a better future for this nation? Are they setting the stage, to paraphrase Kate Stoneman, for a metamorphosis in which equality of the vote is a fact of life? Well, I'll just say the jury's out. The good news is, despite many of the challenges that I've just mentioned, voter turnout has been breaking records. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, which has classified the US as a flawed democracy in its 2022 Democracy Index, we achieved one of the world's highest electoral participation rates in 2022, thanks to record turnouts in November of that year, especially notable in a midterm election year, and the 60% turnout for the 2020 presidential election. So, voter participation is up. Good thing. That said, as state houses and federal courts continue to alter the voting rights landscape, much work remains to ensure equal access to the vote. That calls for lawyers to meet the many challenges stemming from Shelby County, as well as informing voters of their rights. As CEO of Equal Justice Works, which places public interest attorneys at legal organizations across the country, over 2,500 so far. Over 2,500 so far, yes. Yes. I have the great privilege of seeing a new generation of lawyers working to safeguard our democratic institutions through voter education, legislative advocacy, and litigation. These lawyers give me hope for the future. For example, Equal Justice Works fellows Uruj Sheikh and Alton Wong have joined this fight by working for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Common Cause. Uruj is using litigation, community organizing, and legislative advocacy to protect voters' rights. At Common Cause, Alton is researching how local laws may be used to challenge partisan gerrymandering, identifying important new legal tools. Much as it was for Kate Stoneman and for me, for Uruj and Alton, this work is personal. For Alton, the issues he cares deeply about, from immigration reform to healthcare access, they all depend on having elected officials that reflect their constituents. Uruj sees her role as challenging these immediate threats to democracy while also building long-term sustainable solutions to ensure that every person has access to the ballot. Uruj and Alton are doing critical work. We need more people like them. The American Bar Association recently reported that fewer than 1% of all lawyers in the US are focusing on public interest law. Is that not stunning? Fewer than 1%. This is an alarming statistic that should disturb us all, because we confront an untenable access to justice gap. The Legal Services Corporation reports that 92% of legal needs are going unmet in this country, 92%. And when we consider the many people earning too much to qualify for legal services, but not enough to afford their own attorney, that gap translates into 150 million legal problems going unresolved annually, according to Arizona State University professor Rebecca Sandifer. 150. And these aren't just numbers, right? These are people. Grandparents seeking assistance because they're raising their grandkids. Working families fighting off collection agencies because they have a medical debt. Moms trying to get individual education plans for their kids with ADHD. Or people being refused language materials to vote. When people can't access affordable legal services, their civil legal needs go unmet, leaving the most vulnerable and intentionally marginalized communities, whether because of poverty or race or immigration status, they're left without vital assistance to protect their rights. For too many people, this access to justice gap means the promise of equal justice is ephemeral at best, generating distrust in the rule of law, as well as in our system of government. So what can we do to move our flawed democracy to be first in class, to be a Kate Stoneman first? Well, revitalizing the Voting Rights Act and a blanket repeal of laws interfering with the right to vote, that would be a brilliant start, but that's a long-term project. We can draw inspiration from Kate Stoneman. Undeterred by a constraining past and present, she jumped into the fray, advocating for eliminating race and gender barriers to the bar admission. She did the work, regardless of having a full-time job, of being the one and only woman in law school. And she was no spring chicken. What does it mean for you? Well, you have taken the plunge. You've got law students here at a school with a justice center. I am so impressed by all the social justice work that's happening here at Albany. So Kate's example tells us there's always time to do the right thing. So sign up to be a poll watcher if you haven't graduated yet. You could be a poll watcher. You can certainly vote. And you must. I can't believe I have to even say that, but you must. Don't be discouraged. The only way to get the changes that you want is to get in there and vote in every single election. Every single election. Every single election, okay? I'm looking at you. No, I know you're a voter. But I mean, anyway, we can talk about that later. Take on pro bono matters. If you're practicing, take on pro bono matters. I mean, you got a pro bono center here as well. I mean, this place is really happening in terms of making a difference. Yes. Work to make legal assistance more accessible. Work with us. We love to see more Equal Justice Works fellows coming out of Albany. You can certainly support Equal Justice Works. I had to do that. I'm the CEO. I have to. It will take all these efforts and more to tackle the many challenges confronting us, but I am confident that by dedicating ourselves to being first in class, to being Kate Stoneman first, we will make a difference and promote equality for all in the process. Thank you so much.
More amazing remarks, more times for me to say, wow. Thank you so much, Verna. What a wonderful and inspirational evening. To cap off this incredible night, we have an exciting raffle by the Women's Law Caucus, where there are fabulous baskets to our right that you can bid on as part of Gender in the Law Week. And we have a special Kate Stoneman Day basket that someone will win at the reception. The proceeds go to Albany County Crime Victims and Sexual Violence Center. Please check out the baskets as you're leaving, and we'll bring them to the foyer as well so that you can purchase raffle tickets. In closing, while gender equality is a concept most people can agree upon theoretically, Kate Stoneman actually personified the concept in reality. She has inspired countless law students, future lawyers, and more. Kate Stoneman and her legacy remind all of us how much progress we have made in the area of gender equality in the law. Yet, of course, we are reminded daily how much more progress we still need to make to achieve true gender equality under the law. Thank you, awardees, for helping us get there one step at a time. On behalf of Albany Law School, we thank you all so much for being here tonight. Please join us for a wonderful food and wine reception on the first floor in the East Foyer.